Hello, my friends out there. Teaching by itself is a rewarding and a beautiful experience. It is something that inspires and stimulates young minds to flourish and nurture themselves. But that doesn't mean teaching is without its challenges. The very classroom is a space that poses plenty of challenges to a teacher. The time constraint, the number of students, the resources available, the resources we require, even the physical environment of the classroom are just a few constraints we can name. These are factors that we cannot change. Above all these, for a language teacher, the hurdle is even more bigger. We never expect a homogeneous crowd to be sitting in front of us with equal language capacities or competence. So, making all students take away the same thing from a classroom is rather a Herculean task. But at the same time, it is possible to think that or to understand that no child is left behind and that every child takes something home. This interaction is meant to explain a few strategies we have tried in class to teach the lesson The Squirrel. Though the methods are suitable to our needs and our taste, it doesn't mean that this is the only one way to teach the poem. Since every teacher has a different or a unique context, these methods may be adapted to suit that context and those students, which is a totally independent decision of the teacher. And it is the context and the teacher that determines the efficacy of a chosen method. Every lesson attempted by a teacher can stay focused if we set objectives for that particular lesson. For the lesson The Squirrel, we had set 5 major objectives. To list them in the order, or the order may be changed, these are the 5 objectives we had set for that lesson. Number 1, a few strategies you can try towards team teaching, a few methods we can try in a multilingual classroom, a few strategies to analyze poetry, exposing students to a few self-learning tools, and a touch of interdisciplinary learning. Let's look at each objective and understand their importance. Why team teaching is a better option than a single teacher teaching a classroom? The most basic advantage of the team teaching concept is that it can help avoid the monotony of a lesson. Children get to see 2 faces in a classroom where we can experience the benefit of cooperative planning. Obviously, 2 minds are better than 1. Studies say that it even gives a democratic representation to a classroom. The second objective we have put for that lesson is the strategies we can try for a multilingual language classroom. In a multilingual classroom, children come in with a wealth of experience which is quite often overlooked by teachers. To make the student feel acceptable and engaged in a classroom, a teacher can always employ multilingual resources which can make the student feel engaged and strengthen his weak language using his strong language. This has got research evidence. For the third objective of analyzing the text, we have used multiple strategies in the lesson. It ranges from very simple reading of the text to multiple reading to a final stage where a child is able to synthesize in the form of a writing exercise. The techniques for analyzing poetry ranges from simple reading of the text to multiple exposure of the text to creative writing. The easiest strategy a teacher can use is layered questioning. In layered questioning, we start with simple open questions like yes or no question to answers that demand thinking and responses from the students. In this way, using layered questions, we can take them to the advanced writing which involves the creative element. So, in the analysis of the text, we have used a wide range of techniques ranging from simple reading of the words in the text to creative writing. The fourth objective we have stated is developing self-learning tools. This is essential to develop students for the 21st century. 21st century learners are different, so the teachers also must be different. Now, what is the importance of self-learning tools? Research reported by Harvard Business Review reveals that, I quote, "We rarely grow alone," close the quotation, and that we are better equipped to learn and extend our knowledge as a collective. Individuals, however, must be guided to take the initiative for learning and identifying their learning resources. Though it is possible to put in or to add any number of objectives for a lesson, it is ideal to restrict it to 5 or 6. So, in this case, we have restricted it to 5. So, the last one we have put as an objective to this lesson is interdisciplinary learning. The importance of interdisciplinary is somewhat explained in the word itself. This kind of approach allows students to gain information or nurture the information they get from a text by referring to other disciplines as well. This empowers a student to understand things from multiple perspectives, which is very important for a student as he advances the learning ladder. Now, let's look at the strategies we used in class. Why did we use riddles for a start? The poem in itself is a riddle in poetic form. But besides that, why did we move into other riddles from other languages? Riddles have the power to capture the interest or the curiosity of the students. So, primarily it is meant to grab the attention of the learners. When it is something outside the text, when it sounds like testing their intelligence in class, students naturally get active. And when a riddle is posed, we want students to think about the keywords. These keywords are supposed to trigger the thinking process. Once the thought process is on, once something comes to their mind, we keep the classroom a space for free expression. Every child gets the freedom to express what comes to his mind. So, initially it is grabbing interest, then it triggers the thinking process, and then it triggers speech. So, eventually riddles can serve as something that generates interest for a lesson in a class. This is the reason why riddles have been used as the starters of this lesson. Now, what have we accomplished through these riddles? Without even the students' understanding, we have worked on their listening skills. Listening skills, as studies say, is one of the underutilized potential of every child. When a child is trained to develop his listening skills, it is said that he grows up to a resourceful, self-reliant person, which we can start in the English language classrooms. So, without any effort, but using a simple riddle, what we work upon is the listening skill of a child, generating interest with the riddles. A second skill we have worked upon is the interpretation skills of the child. As we mentioned previously, listening to the key words, he processes that information and he interprets what he has heard or the information he has gained in his own way. This is the skill of interpretation. This is something that we developed through the riddles. Along with listening skill and interpretation, we are also automatically exposing the children to different language structures. Like for example, we introduced phrasal verbs, we introduced question structure, we even introduced the passive structure of English sentences. But again, these are not done deliberately, but as a part of delivery of the riddles. We have also shown the children two riddles in poetic structure. One was about a guitar, the other one was the text, the squirrel they were learning. So, the structure of literature or the structure of writing poetry is also exposed side by side, along with analytical skills and vocabulary which we have made them use with the display of synonyms and antonyms. Besides these, we have also elicited responses from them using different levels of questioning, like open-ended questions, analytical questions, and even questions that demanded a little bit of creative thinking. So much has been accomplished by using riddles as openers to a prescribed text. So let's look at, as a listed form, what are the things we have accomplished using the riddles. Listening skill development, interpretation skills, use of phrasal verbs, use of synonyms by application in sentences, passive voice construction, riddles in poetic form, using language for questions and eliciting answers from students, analytical skills, and exposure to riddles in other languages. If we take a look at the poem we have taught in class, you might not fail to observe that our strategies for analyzing the poem is the same that we used for interpreting the riddles. The same strategies have been repeated, into which we have interspersed multiple exposure to the poem. So, familiarizing students with the strategies along with the vocabulary, along with the phrases, along with the rhyme, rhythm and the diction, it all helps the greater challenge called paraphrasing. So, this is like step by step building or scaffolding towards the most difficult learning skill of writing in English. One of our major objectives in teaching the lesson was to expose the students to self-learning tools. One self-learning tool we have introduced here is a website which is www.visuwords.com, which is a visual dictionary for students. Why do we call it a visual dictionary? Because this dictionary gives students a visual representation of language using color codes. It is also referred to as a visual thesaurus or an interactive lexicon. Through this simple tool, students can understand the derivatives and parts of speech when they get stuck with new expressions in English. As the lesson advances, if you look back at the slides once again, we have shown them something called the Malayannan of Kerala. Now, why was this shown to the students? If we look at the objective set, we can see there interdisciplinary approach. This is the easiest way to do that. Now, how does this help? This kindles observation as well as it enhances research aptitude in students. Now they learn to go beyond what they learn in an English classroom. In this case, they even get to know geographical differences and the flora and fauna. What more can we do in an English class to promote interdisciplinary approach? Towards the last part of the lesson, what we have provided for the students is something that is tabulated. This can be called as a graphic organizer. A graphic organizer is something that helps a student to plan and organize his thoughts. This is a really helpful self-learning tool when it comes to writing. Since the words are already supplied in the tabulated form using the graphic organizer, we can introduce discourse markers that are required for this particular kind of writing. In this case, for example, students have to write about the differences between the squirrel in the poem and the squirrel in the picture we have given. So this is a compare and contrast writing. In this case, we provide them the linkers to the side or the discourse markers, which are but, whereas, while, different, etc. So this is again an early exposure given to a larger writing challenge of writing for a purpose. Along with that, we have already taught them paraphrasing skills using the right vocabulary and the right choice of words. So by the time we end the lesson, students are ready to write about it, knowing all the elements of the text chosen for the study. So this way we can connect our resources to the objectives and even to our assessments. No learning is complete without the assessment. This writing can form a substance for assessment for the teacher, and from there it can be built up even further. My friend Miss Reena will now explain for you what are the 7 functions of language which we teachers can keep in mind so that we never miss an opportunity to bring out any one of these functions in any of our interactions in the classroom, whether formal or informal.
Thank you, Ms. Vinita. Now let's have a look into the 7 functions of language as stated by Michael Halliday. The initial function is regulatory function, interactional function, representational function, personal function, imaginative function, instrumental function and heuristic function. Now let's look into imaginative function. What is imaginative function? The moment you start narrating things to the students, they themselves construct their own world of stories, characters in their language, in their native language, and providing the tools as vocabulary, they try to induce themselves to bring out that imaginary words or language into the target language. Instrumental function. Now, what is instrumental function? Language used to fulfill a need, for example, food, comfort, and etc. Regulatory function. Language that is used to influence others, other behaviors, for example, commanding, persuading, and requesting. See, any language that comes under this category falls into regulating language or behavior. Interactional function. Language that is used to develop relationships or ease conversation. This includes phrases like "I love you, mommy," "thank you," "please," personal function. Now, when you look into this function, you will understand that the language that is used to express personal emotions, opinions, feelings and attitudes. This also includes speaker's identity. A language that is used to explore, learn and discover from the atmosphere is heuristic function. For example, the continuous narration of a child's experience. This includes questions or running commentary of a child. What happens inside a class? Now, in a language classroom, there are umpteen number of opportunities which explores all these 7 functions at various levels.
Ms. Reena has now exposed you to the 7 language functions that we can keep in our mind when we deal with students and language in an English classroom. You now know about the immense possibilities inside a classroom, which comes to us free of cost. Every interaction that we make with our students can fulfill one of these functions. But as teachers, we have to bear in mind that these are to be connected to the assessments with which we finally evaluate our classes and the objectives. Assessments, formal or informal, must always be linked to the objectives that we carry to the class. Objective-based, focused, creative planning is hence key to an effective language class. Let's make learning a joyful experience, not only for us, but also for the students. Our ultimate aim is to create lifelong learners. Thank you.